Have you ever found yourself watching a lighting tutorial on YouTube and thinking, rad, I can totally do that. You get on location, start setting up, and then quickly realize it's not that simple. Why is it not looking the way it's supposed to? Why is it not looking natural? This was me for sure when I started taking lighting seriously, and I remember the frustration of not being able to mimic some of the fantastic setups I saw online. The main reason is because it actually takes time and practice to up your skill to a level where you eventually get the look you desire. And with this video, I hope to help you on this journey. The thing you'll hear everyone say the most is to backlight and to use motivated lighting. And as simple as it sounds, I still found myself struggling at first. So in this video, I'm going to try and break it down in a more digestible way so that you can have a framework to practice lighting with. There are basically two scenarios for lighting. One where you get to choose or build the location, and one where you have to light a location already chosen for you as best you can. The workflow in both scenarios are exactly the same, except for one key difference. When you don't have the option to choose the location, your biggest limitation will be composition. I say composition because it's the determining factor behind whether a location is a good choice when scouting. When looking for a composition, your criteria for selection should always be met with these three keywords: backlight, separation, and motivation. When you walk into a location, ask yourself the following: can this composition be backlit? Will there be enough depth and separation between the subject and the background? How am I going to motivate visible and invisible light sources? Considering these three questions, I'm going to take you through my thought process. So let's talk about backlighting first. In most cases, backlight doesn't mean putting a light directly behind your subject, but more about putting the camera on the dark side of your subject, with the strongest light source somewhere on the opposite side. In other words, you'll always want to point your camera towards the brightest source, either coming directly into the lens or from a side angle, but not crossing this 180-degree line. The moment you cross this line, your image will start to feel flat and less interesting. When I walked into this location, the first thing I noticed was the big windows at the back, naturally the brightest source in the room. There was a little bit of light coming from behind, but I was able to control it with a blanket and a 5-in-1 reflector adding negative fill. The reason that made me consider it is because number two, there would be a good amount of distance creating separation between the subject at the table with the kitchen in the background, with this wall creating an additional layer. The third reason was that I knew that I will be able to motivate this bright window with my own light, just out of frame to the right. The concept of motivation is super simple, yet it's still very much possible to create unnatural looking scenes. In many cases, it's totally fine to throw a big parabolic softbox onto your subject, but this only works if you already have a fair amount of ambient light coming from your main source. In scenes where the light on your subject is really low before you switch on your key light, it's always better to double the fuse. There are so many ways to do this, but one item that always goes with me on set is this 8x8 half silk. Sometimes I close up entire windows with it, and sometimes I just hang it from a C-stand. But it's a great way to soften light in a more natural way. The challenge with double diffusion is that the light needs to be a certain distance from the second layer, and with big parabolic softboxes on small COB lights, this is not always possible. This is where panel lights are really handy because they are thin and easier to fit into smaller spaces, especially overhead. I recently got my hands on a Nanlite PavoSlim 240CL, and since I started using it, I haven't stopped. It's a really fantastic solution for soft light in tight spaces, and being full color makes it all the more versatile. The shot was also composed in a way that I aimed more into the corner of the stairs, because that area would be a little darker than the subject, creating more separation, at least after all my lights are switched on, because if I just switch on the key light outside a frame, this part is still too dark. For the top of the stairs, I used an Alien 150C to light up this portion of the frame, and it helps to isolate the subject with the checkerboard of bright, dark, bright. So if you recap on the 3 keywords, backlight, check. Separation, check. Motivation, check. Add an extra light to restore balance to the scene, and it's as easy as that. But what if you don't have a strong source in the back? What if your strongest source is coming from above? In this night scene, using the 3 keywords, it was easy to determine if the shot would work. For backlight, I used this lamp on the top with the camera on the edge of the 180-degree line, but still catching the shadow side of the face. There was more than enough separation between the subject and the background, and motivating this lamp was possible by placing a light just outside of the frame on the left. First, a quick run through of how the scene was lit. Starting with the backlight, I used the Power Bulb 10C set to 2700 Kelvin. I used 2 more of them on the lights over the table. To create some color contrast, I used an Alien 150C outside at 12,000 Kelvin to imitate cool night light, and a power tube on the kitchen floor to motivate that light. The scene still needed some lift for better contrast, so a Forza 150B at the top at 6500 Kelvin helped to restore the balance. Again, the Power Slim 240C was used as a key light, double diffused at 4000 Kelvin, which just neutralized the warmth of the 2700 Kelvin lamp with the camera's white balance also set to 4000 Kelvin. This is what creates the contrast between warm and cool, but still retaining natural skin tone. Next, a PowerTube 15X was used as a fill light, also at 4000 Kelvin, set to 1%. Now there's one final step that transforms the image from feeling lit to feeling more natural. And that is to flag off some of the excess light, and this is also a mistake I used to make. This step is what separates amateurs from pros, and it's simply about shaping light more intentionally. A 5-in-1 reflector on the black side helps to cut off the spill of light from the large soft source and helps to focus it more on the subject. This is the key to making your motivated lighting feel more realistic. If you compare the two, it's clear which one looks more natural. So what's the takeaway here? Well, first of all, I'm aware that not everyone has all of these lights available in their arsenal. But this is why motivation is the 3rd keyword to use when scouting for a location. When I'm looking for a composition, I'm also looking for one that is the easiest to light, using the least amount of lights possible. Except for the flashlight that serves as a practical, this scene has no extra lights added. The light on the outside is natural and was warmed up in camera by dialing up the Kelvin, and the flashlight was cooled down with a blue CTB gel. Adding more lights here will just destroy the ambience. A good way to practice your own lighting is to start in your home. Take every room and, considering the 3 keywords, light it the best way you possibly can. When you're location scouting, keep these principles in mind. Look for the best composition possible where you are able to backlight, create separation, and motivate your lights. Now take it a step further and start to dissect the lighting in your favorite movies and series. Look at the composition and you'll see the backlight. You'll see the separation, and ask yourself, how did they motivate the lights in this scene? Once you get into this mindset, you'll find lighting getting a whole lot easier. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.